Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Vanguard Live. We're coming at you guys today with some news, with some drama, lots of stuff to talk about as always. How you doing, Zach?
Man, I fucking spilled coffee on my laptop this morning, a fuck ton of it, but I think we're straight. So if I get any big glitches during the stream today, if I just disappear, that's a real big bummer and a problem for future episodes, but you might have an idea why that occurred. But outside of that, I'm hoping that's the worst part of my day and that nothing really of consequence comes of it. But yeah, super excited to do this stream today and wanted to give a quick holler out to everybody about the obviously the Fred Hampton General Strike Summit is going on all weekend. It's going on right now as we speak. Gavin and I are just jumping in to do a quick little Vanguard episode, and then we'll actually be jumping on to the Fred Hampton General Strike Summit a little bit later this afternoon. So super excited about that. Lots going on, lots to talk about. So yeah, we can shout out the patrons and rock and roll.
100%, 100%. Let's do a shout out to the patrons. Thank you so much to everyone supporting the show on patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. Really appreciate the support over there. It does make our show possible, truly does. And if you want to join our community, our patron community, then you can hit up that first link in the description box. Again, that's patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. And you can just click that link in the description if you would like to support us on Patreon and join our community and get access to our other benefits that we offer too. So lots of cool stuff going on there. Really exciting stuff. And yeah, just thank you so much to everyone supporting the show. It means everything and it keeps us going. So huge shout out. And we do like to shout out our patrons at the beginning and end of every live stream as always. But yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on today in the news across Twitter. Leftist drama at a fever pitch once again. But yeah, let's get into it. Maybe we can start by talking a bit about this CBO report as it regards to the Build Back Better plan and basically just how the Progressive Caucus got totally played by even some of their own admission now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all kind of knew this was going to happen, right? I mean, there's no way that the CBO was going to be this neutral arbiter of what's good for the American people. They were going to be a scapegoat. That's what all of these institutions serve as, right? They will either be just mulled over if it's an agenda that the government is serious about, something that they want to be passed, but they'll hold it up as the inescapable roadblock if it's something that they don't want to pass, making it the perfect scapegoat because it doesn't have any real teeth or consequence to them when they want to get around it. So we all knew this was going to happen. As Daily Poster, I believe, is this a David Sirota piece? Yeah, David Sirota, Julia Rock, Andrew Perez. So shout out to the Daily Poster team. They always do great work. But it says lies, damn lies, and CBO statistics. The GOP-led congressional budget offices is using gimmicks and fuzzy math to doom the Democrats' Build Back Better bill. And basically what he talks about in this bill, or in this piece, if I'm not mistaken, is that the CBO has decided to ignore all of the savings that will actually come long-term from this Build Back Better plan. And not include that in its calculations for whether or not that will add to the deficit. So we know that a lot, as was the case with many what we'll call left policies on this podcast from here on out, because I hate the term progressive because that means selling out and getting fucking nothing. The leftist policies that we advocate for here at the Vanguard, they often will put money back into the system. They will save money in the long term. What we do now is a very expensive way of making a few institutions, a few individuals rich, and the rest is it's very expensive for everybody else. A lot of progressive policies would alleviate that. So there's massive amounts of savings in real dollars over the course of time if you invest in the Build Back Better plan, even as toothless and fucking declawed as it is now. So I'm not here to sim for the Build Back Better bill, but I am saying that it would save money as opposed to what we're doing now. And the CBO has decided to effectively ignore that and just look at the actual price tag as it would be passed through Congress. And of course, that will add to the deficit. And since this is a budget reconciliation bill, they'll use that as a way of saying, oh, we can't go for it because it'll add to the deficit and that's not allowed, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, 100%. This is a great Daily Poster piece that you guys should definitely check out. As it says here, last week, progressive lawmakers agreed to move ahead on passing the Senate's bipartisan infrastructure legislation before voting on the party's Build Back Better bill, in exchange for a promise that corporate Democratic holdouts would support the latter if the CBO said the bill is fully funded and won't raise the deficit. The controversial bargain came despite warnings that CBO analyses are often rigged against progressive priorities. And that's something that we said on the Vanguard. This is obvious stuff, guys. We can't pretend as if the members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus weren't aware of this. They obviously know that the CBO analysis are going to be rigged against progressive priorities, and they're always going to be used and weaponized against said priorities, said legislation, etc. And it says here those warnings appear to have come true. The CBO just said that when calculating the net cost of the Build Back Better, it will not include its own projections of massive savings that would be generated by strengthening tax enforcement to collect hundreds of billions of dollars of levies that go unpaid by the wealthiest sliver of the population. So essentially, the Progressive Caucus got played here, and this is pretty interesting. You alerted me to this, Zach. Ilhan Omar tweeting out in no uncertain terms a pretty, clear calling out of her fellow members of the Progressive Caucus, namely Jayapal, Premier Jayapal. She says, in response to this tweet, warning from CBO to Dems, a full cost estimate on Build Back Better Act may not be done by November 15th. Some estimates this week, but other estimates will take longer, particularly for provisions in some titles that interact with those in other titles. So essentially, they were told that by the week of November 15th, that's tomorrow, by the way, so next week, that the CBO score would be complete, and then that would, give the corporate Dems the permission essentially to vote for this bill and pass the Build Back Better agenda. But now they're saying, oh, it's actually going to take a little bit longer than that. So, of course, and Ilhan says here, translation, Build Back Better Act is not going to happen next week, and everyone should have seen that coming when we decoupled the bills. So she's absolutely correct here, and she's basically subtweeting Premier Jayapal and saying, like, obviously we should have seen this coming. Are you fucking kidding me? Of course this is going to happen as soon as we decoupled the bills, hence the point of coupling them in the first place. That was the whole point of coupling these bills together, and as soon as they let go of that leverage and dropped their line, of course this is going to happen. This is so fucking obvious.
Yeah, 100%. It's a clear subtweet aggravation at Premier Jayapal. Unfortunately, we don't have much use for aggravation and subtweeting on the left right now, and this puts us in a real fucking bind, right? When you when they decoupled the bills and the the paltry BIF bipartisan infrastructure bill was passed, and it's going to go to Biden's desk. I don't think he's signed it yet, but he's going to. It's basically law now. And what that does is that gives the absolutely dog shit piece of legislation that Joe Biden's going to wave around and be like, we got our infrastructure bill done. Yay. And all the corporate Dems are going to be like, shut the fuck up to anybody that's complaining about this shit. We have an election. Do you want the Republicans to lose? Donald Trump is on the cusp of coming back. He's on the precipice. He's coming back. And if it's not him, it's one of his minions. They're everywhere. Don't talk about how bad our infrastructure bill was. Do you want us to lose? You're handicapping the Democrats. What are you, some kind of vigilante? Why are you on this quixotic mission to sabotage the Democratic Party? Et cetera, the kind of shit that we hear fucking constantly whenever you try and have a rational conversation with Democrats about strategy. And since they decoupled the bills, that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, this puts you in an interesting position as somebody who is concerned with harm reduction, right? So I was completely on board with shooting the hostage, meaning that, you bind the bills. If they don't pass, you don't fucking vote for anything. You give Joe Biden nothing, no piece of legislation. And that forces him to come back to the table and put some pressure on other individuals, and you get more than what you were asking for, right? So in this case, you get the 3.75 trillion plus the 1.2 trillion. That's almost 5 trillion, half as much as what we need. But, you're like, okay, well, you played your cards about as best as you could under a Biden administration. And I don't think anybody is really pissed off about that. I think that, people are mad and they're disappointed and they're talking about how this isn't good enough, but they're not deeply fucking mad like we are now because we've been obviously played, right? So Matt, good politic guy and good and completely good faith. This is a guy, he's just a dude on YouTube trying to make sense of these things. He says, so please, I'm genuinely asking, explain how exactly the entire Progressive Caucus did not see this coming and chose to let BIF pass as a standalone bill. Jayapal made a massive mistake. Can we just admit that? And I want to say this to you, Mac. She didn't make a mistake, man. It's time to come to that conclusion. It's time to understand she didn't get played. She was trying to play the rest of us. She was trying to play the rest of us by, I got swindled. No, you didn't. Okay? I am not very smart. I would never get elected to Congress. I never would get whatever fancy fucking job you had before you went to Congress. It would never fucking happen, Premia, obviously, for so many reasons. Okay, I saw this coming a mile away, like a big asteroid coming to planet Earth. Okay, I know they all saw this coming. So good politic guy, your heart's in the right place, man. But it's time to have the truth heard a little bit. Yeah, and I think that guy might be coming on our show sometime soon. So shout out to you, man. We look forward to chatting.
Yeah, big fan of Good Politic Guy. He's great on Twitter and YouTube. So definitely a fan of his content. But yeah, I think you're absolutely 100% right there, Zach. We're the ones that got played. We're the ones that got lied to. Did want to move on to another story and unrelated news. Let me find it real quick. This has to do with friends of the show over from Status Quo. Quite an interesting development that happened here. Zach and I were trying to make sense of this yesterday when it dropped, or the day before. Jin, who's the co-founder of Status Quo and has been, right alongside Jordan Chariton, who's really the face of Status Quo. You guys might know Jordan. He's been on our show. He's been on a lot of other people's show. But anyway, Jin was his right-hand woman, and like I said, co-founder of Status Quo, a journalist herself as well. A lot of people don't realize that Status Quo is more than just Jordan Chariton, because like I said, he's really the face of it. But Jin was also equally involved, seemingly just as important. And apparently she's no longer part of Status Quo. She tweeted this out yesterday: "I don't know what to do," and screenshotted this email saying, "You're no longer an owner of Status Quo," and saying the access has changed. So this is definitely interesting. She says, "Did I do something awful? Is there a scandal? No, there isn't. No, I didn't. I am toxic and bad and the number one stressor. I'm unprofessional. My first thought, it's Christmas. I bled for this. Loyalty doesn't get you anywhere. Hard work doesn't get you anywhere. Giving up your rights most certainly doesn't get you anywhere." So, at first second, I were like, what the hell is going on? This is absolutely insane. Like I said, Jin's a hardworking, good journalist herself. Totally, out of nowhere that this happened. It seemed like she was 100% on board with Status Quo and they were working well together. So I didn't really know what to make of this. Jordan followed up with this thread and said, "Last night, Status Quo co-founder Jin Dees told me that she was reaching out to other journalists who she had already had preliminary convos with and would be moving on." And then he said, "Names redacted so as to not drag them into this." So according to Jordan, this happened because Jin was basically already talking about moving on from Status Quo, trying to maybe find a job elsewhere. So he just went ahead and, changed the passwords, essentially, I guess. Upon my lawyer's advice, I changed the company's account passwords and went to sleep. As I was sleeping, my Twitter was accessed by someone else, not me, who retweeted her tweet. This whole thing sucks. I have nothing bad to say about Jin. She is extremely talented, and Status Quo and I owe her major gratitude for helping us build from nothing to what we are now. I know she is going to do great things in the future. And one last piece of this, she then went on to tweet today, actually, "I'm broken and sad, but I want to be very clear about two things. I still love and view Jordan Chariton as a brother to me, and I want Status Quo to grow and thrive. It's my baby, and the work is good and important, even if I'm not there. The stories, the people are the focus. This isn't going to be a game of smears. As I said, there is no scandal. My love runs deep. I know people have questions, and I want to know what happened. I don't have the answers. I think two people can be good and share a vision, and somehow it still doesn't work out. Please don't cancel your membership. Status Quo means the world to me. The work, the people." So in the spirit of Jin's statement, obviously we're not going to engage in a game of smears either. We don't, know all the details of what's going on here. I just wanted to bring you guys this news, as Status Quo is, an outlet that we definitely rely on here at the Vanguard for our analysis. We've, of course, had Jordan on like 3 times. He's a friend of the show. So we figured we should bring you this information, despite the fact that it is still somewhat unclear as to what exactly precipitated this exit from Jin, or the removal of her by Jordan. So this is definitely a little bit of a sketchy situation. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's 100% clear why this happened or why it needed to go down this way. It seems like there's definitely some stuff being left out by both of these individuals as to what went on behind the scenes. But I just wanted to say solidarity with Jin. She's a good journalist, and obviously no one deserves to be, fired without being told why, or, let go in that sort of seemingly unclear way. So again, without getting into anything we don't really know about, I just want to say solidarity and hope that, she's able to find her footing.
Yeah, it's you never know what people's agreements are when you go into kind of a starting a business like this. Nobody that's on the left like this really can. I mean, at least me, I don't. Technically, Gavin and I are business owners. We both own 50% of the Vanguard. We have all that shit worked out. Gavin's also my best friend. I would never betray him. He would never betray me. That's just like the kind of shit that is going on. And that's not to, imply that anything like that went down with Status Quo. That's just to, let people know, like, that's how we've arranged things over at the Vanguard. In case anybody's curious, it would be impossible for this to happen. You would just not see the Vanguard anymore if Gavin and I went the way of the Beatles, but that's just the way it is. But obviously this, it sounds like a kind of like a divorce, right? Like, we still love each other, but we're going separate ways. I imagine there's a couple pieces to the puzzle that we don't have the information for, so I don't really feel good commenting on. I just did want to bring this news to everybody because, Gavin and I have at least always valued the work and the role that Jen brought to Status Quo. And, we know that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes on these shows. And so we just wanted to say, hey, if you valued Status Quo and you valued their work, and, you still should, as Jen said, there's no reason to cancel your Status Quo memberships. People can, diverge, and, maybe we'll find out more information and we'll comment on that along the way. But as it stands, that's what we have to go off of. But you should maybe take a look at what her next venture is and see if you can, help soften the landing for her. And, she does a lot of really good work, all that reporting on Flint that Status Quo produced, all that kind of stuff. I think it's really valuable work. And, shout out to, Jen and the work she did at Status Quo is, I guess, what the point of this was. We're not trying to, badmouth anybody. You'll still see Status Quo clips up here on the Vanguard. It's not like that. We're just saying, hey, you're moving on. These things happen. Hopefully it's okay and everything like that. And, we want our audience to go ahead and follow you onto your next project and support you how they can.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, that was unexpected to me, and maybe more details will come out, maybe not. But I did want to figure out, or I did want to talk about that a little bit, just to try to break down the situation and see if anyone else had any reactions to it. But to move on to another story, this was pretty interesting, pretty amusing, if I do say so myself. Senator Amy Klobuchar, confronted at a fundraising event by a group of water protectors who shut down her speech. We'll play this clip in a second, but it seems to me like this kind of thing is happening more often, more and more so. I see this, it definitely, obviously Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema got their share of protesting and confrontations in public, which was based. But it seems like this is happening more and more to other politicians too, namely Amy Klobuchar, who are about to show this to you. Also, Abby Martin confronted Nancy Pelosi at that COP conference. Her husband, Mike Preisner, confronted George Bush. So, all kinds of stuff. This is great to see, guys. We need more confrontations in public of politicians, making them answer for their horrific policies and the way that impacts their voters. But yeah, without further ado, we can take a look at this clip.
I do want to just jump in and set this up really quickly because the other day we were reacting to one of the cringy, or actually a string of really cringy Kamala Harris videos, and just like how absolutely terrible that she is as vice president. And I made the point, well, to at least, be fair, Biden never wanted Kamala to be his vice president. He wanted Amy Klobuchar to be his vice president. And then, she'd had that horrible history of everything she'd ever done in Minnesota, but particularly with law enforcement, and after George Floyd's murder, she was not a viable option for the Democrats. And so she kind of got cast to the side. I don't think Joe Biden's in any better shape if Amy Klobuchar is his VP. He may even be in worse shape. I don't know if she's maybe less likable even than Kamala Harris. I think she's less likable. Her voice is like nails on chalkboard to me. But anyway, we can play this and everybody can judge for themselves.
Teacher.
Don't you care about the children's future? And what about line 3? Why is that line going through nearly half of North America's
Okay,
fresh
guys.
waters? But not only that, so you're going to fund a $5 billion nature project, but won't intercept on a project that's already...
Guys, could we just let me talk about Connie here just a little bit? Okay. Well, anyway, I want to thank everyone, tell you how much we love Connie Bernardi, okay? So let's get her reelected. She is an incredible leader. And by the way... Stop line 3! 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 Stop line 3!
They are lucky there are no staplers in the vicinity. That's true.
But yeah, I thought this was a hilarious video. Obviously, props to these protesters, and I think that these kind of situations is a really good opportunity to see exactly how much chops a politician has. You know, how do they respond to this kind of pressure? Obviously, you know, they're not expecting something like this to happen when they're at a campaign event, so it really kind of tests their abilities to respond to pressure, respond to a crowd. And as you saw there, Amy Klobuchar totally fucking failed. You know, she didn't even acknowledge the protesters or what they were actually talking about. If you guys remember back in the day, Bernie Sanders, a similar thing happened to him. He was confronted by some Black Lives Matter protesters at a campaign event, I think back in like 2016. And he said, hey, you know, come up on stage and let's talk about this. He gave them the microphone and said, hey, what's your issue? Let's have a discussion here. I want you to be heard. I want your, you know, worries to be addressed. And they had a dialogue and had a conversation, and it was great. It was one of the best things Bernie's ever done. But here, when you see corporate Democrats like Amy Klobuchar get confronted by protesters that are demanding that they, you know, answer for their policy decisions, like I said, she totally just turns into this, you know, like, you know, can we just go back to talking about Connie? You know, what the fuck, bro? You're a politician. You're a legislator. Your salary is paid for by tax dollar money. Why can't you just address your constituents? Why can't you address someone that has an issue with the way that you're legislating as a senator, the policies that you support? What is so hard about just having a conversation with real people that took time out of their day to come express the way they feel?
100%, man. And yeah, oh God, I'm just so happy that we don't have to watch Amy Klobuchar clips anymore. Like, Jesus Christ, I just don't want to see. I hate watch things like this, admittedly, but man, she's so bad. How do these people have careers as politicians? I don't understand.
Okay, I want to thank everyone, tell you how much we love Connie Bernardi, okay? So let's get her reelected!
Remember the what was it? God, Trump said, I'm the snow queen, but his hair in the blizzard. Remember that clip?
I do remember that clip. That was, oh my God. And do you remember how she fucked up so many times AMLO's name? She was like, she called him like Manuel Lopez or something like that, or you know, she was like she
couldn't even remember his name at all. She called him, she was like, oh yeah, he's the president of Mexico, the Mexican president, and they were like, so do you know his name? And she was like, oh yeah, it's the Mexican president is his name.
Yeah, but then on the debate stage, she like tried to have a moment where she was like clearly looking down, but she didn't get his whole name, right? So she just said like Manuel Lopez or Manuel Lopez Obrador maybe, but she definitely, I think his name's like Andre Manuel Lopez Obrador, whatever the fuck, but everybody calls him Obrador. That would have been a perfectly fine, you know, fucking response, but instead she tries to read out his entire like birth name, which is like 4 names long, and fucked it up the second time. And Pete Buttigieg, actually, the one good moment he had in the debate stage was hammering her ass about how she was on the fucking border fucking relations committee or whatever the fuck she was on.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, Amy Klobuchar is so goddamn cringe, guys. And this clip just gave me so many flashbacks to the 2020 Democratic primary. Terrible, terrible politician. So yeah, I guess it's a good thing we're not stuck with her as VP, although like you said, Zach, Kamala is no better. But this is the caliber of politicians that the Democratic Party tries to hoist on us, tries to shove down our throats as if these are likable, acceptable options for leader of the free world. And it's just totally embarrassing, especially when you see them in a situation like this, under pressure, reacting to you know, actual real working class people that are demanding something of her, as any legislator or politician should be prepared to deal with.
Yeah, it's day one. You know, you're going to be a politician, you're going to be a comedian, you're going to do any kind of job like this. You got to learn how to handle a heckler, give it back to them. And obviously there was nowhere for her to go on that because she's a criminal and there was no excuse for line 3. But that's beside the point. You know, if we're just marking her up as like, oh, how savvy is she? Like Barack Obama, when he was running for, when he was a senator, he would have knocked that out of the fucking park. He would have fucking handled that with grace and probably, you know, made the people in the audience love him even more, even though he was saying absolutely nothing and being condescending as shit to the protesters. You know, he would have had it like this. Let me tell you a little time. I have hope. I have hope. that if we all work together, that we can dream that future you're dreaming right now today, folks. We can do it. And he would kind of like spin it, and the protesters are like, what are you fucking saying? But the audience and the people at home, that's who he was always spinning it for. That's what a good politician does, even when they're like a sack of shit, like full of empty promises, just like Obama, just like every other Democratic politician. But yeah, she has absolutely no political instinct. She has no skill. She has no way to work a crowd at all. Like I said, it's like a fucking nails on chalkboard listening to this woman.
100%, 100%. Also, thank you so much for the super chat, Jimmy, for the 449. Really appreciate that. Where do they find these people? She makes me like Kamala way more. Yeah, honestly, like we were saying, she's at least as bad, if not worse, as Kamala Harris. It's really not even a question. And again, that was most of the 2020 Democratic primary, just absolutely pathetic, uninspiring, unexciting candidates. And that's pretty much where the Democratic Party's at right now. I'll try to find the tweet, but a lot of people have been saying, a lot of insiders have basically been saying that, yeah, Harris Buttigieg, that's the future of the Democratic Party. That is what we can expect. Yeah, here it is right here. Let me show you guys. Fuck.
And really quickly, yeah, you're 100% right. Bomb Hill's not people. She was at least somewhat responsible for George Floyd's death because she had the opportunity to deal with Derek Chauvin in the past, if I'm not mistaken. Gavin, that's correct, isn't that?
Yeah, so she was the prosecutor or the attorney general or whatever the fuck in Minnesota, and she was involved in a case, or Derek Chauvin was rather, the police officer who killed George Floyd, and under her control, he was let go. He was allowed to walk, essentially, even though he, of course, had been abusing his position of power as a police officer. And George Floyd was not the first man that he had assaulted. He was the first man that he'd killed, I believe. But other people had been the victim of Derek Chauvin's abuse of power. And Klobuchar was head of the Department of Justice, or she was Attorney General or something like that in New York.
Yeah, she was the AG.
AG, yeah, exactly. And Derek Chauvin was let go. She says that she didn't have anything to do with that specific case. But still, if you're the head, if you're the AG in a state, and then someone gets let go instead of brought to justice, of course he was going to go back to abusing people, roaming the streets, and ultimately taking a man's life. So yeah, that's basically why she wasn't chosen as vice president. So it is what it is. But as I was saying, here we can see this. Yeah. Dems broadly see Harris Buttigieg as the future of the party beyond President Biden. They also see their political fortunes diverging in the first 10 months of Biden's presidency. So yeah, they have every right to be anxious about their party, because let me tell you right here, right now, Harris Buttigieg ain't going nowhere, guys. This is probably I was going to say the worst Democratic ticket of all time, but then I remember Clinton, Kane, Hillary Clinton, Tim Kaine. What a god awful ticket that was. So this is not necessarily any worse, but it's definitely not any better than that. I was saying the other day that this would be like the kind of like the Romney Ryan ticket for the Democratic Party. If you guys remember, in 2012, the Republicans nominated Mitt Romney, who picked Paul Ryan as his vice president, and no one was excited on the Republican side. At least it was the most fucking lame, boring, unexciting ticket of all time. Just two corporate sellouts that the people didn't want. And here we have the same exact thing shaping up. Harris Buttigieg would be the most corporate, soulless, unexciting, uninspiring ticket of all time, and that very, very likely is what will be hoisted upon us come 2024. So we'll see what happens. I certainly hope we get some sort of a primary and that there's not just a coronation, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I thought I would let you guys know about that as well.
Who was John Kerry's running mate? I'm trying to remember.
John Edwards.
John Edwards Jr. Yeah. That's like the vibes I get from this fucking this election as well. It's like you couldn't even beat George W. Bush. You could not even beat George Bush after the invasion of Iraq, because Kerry supported the invasion of Iraq. Can you fucking believe that shit? Yeah, this is that kind of like batshit crazy brainworms that the Democratic Party does when they have the most easy election to re-win, and they win in the first place, as you mentioned with the Hillary Clinton, Tim Kaine, or it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. And I did want to say thank you, Nick, for the $4.99. Amy Klobuchar has the dialect of an unlikable vice principal trying to sub an unruly classroom. That is so goddamn accurate. And it's funny because I feel like Kamala Harris has the exact same energy. I've always thought that Kamala Harris came off like a goddamn like middle school principal that's just hated by all the students. That's always the vibes I've got from her. Never is she been charismatic or come off like a leader. And the same goes for Amy Klobuchar. Total high school or middle school principal vibes to me as well. So that's very accurately said, Nick. Thanks for the super chat.
Right. Are we ready to move on from Miss Klobuchar? Perhaps the future of the Democratic Party if she gets scrappy and can pry the prize away from Kamala.
Yeah, for sure. We do have this Jimmy Dore, Sam Seder drama to talk about, but I want to say that to the end of the stream. So you guys stay tuned. We will get to that in a second. But one last Twitter beef I wanted to discuss is actually, speaking of Bernie Sanders, Bernie getting into it a little bit with Elon Musk of all people. So let's take a look at Bernie's original tweet here. We must demand that the extremely wealthy pay their fair share, period. So obviously pretty standard Bernie tweet, pretty innocuous statement from the Sandman, but still very accurate. You know, obviously the wealthy should pay their fair share. That's pretty standard stuff, like I said. But who responds? Elon Musk. I keep forgetting that you're still alive. So thanks, Elon. Fucking asshole.
Yeah, this is where the progressive movement stands, guys. Bernie Sanders just got ratioed to shit by Elon Musk, guys. We hurting out here. This is bad time. It's dark times because, hear me out, rational podcaster comes out here calling balls and strikes. That was kind of funny. But it's also like you're such a fucking maniacal sociopathic prick that I don't like anything that you say. Right, like if I was a neutral observer and I'm like, well, I realized why Elon Musk was salty and he replied to that tweet. A bunch of people were making the point about like how little taxes he pays, like all this kinds of shit, and you know he just sold off like what was it, $5 billion worth of shares in Tesla or something crazy. I imagine that this is why he's like all up in arms about it, but I have no idea. Either way, yeah, he's a real piece of shit. And Bernie Sanders, if he could get crack-a-lacking on actually standing up for the people, he might not get ratioed as brutally.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, fuck Elon Musk. Not much to that story other than saying fuck Elon Musk, but it is what it is. You're right, Bernie did get ratioed. So again, that is what it is. Oh yeah, and that's true, Carr. John Edwards did cheat on his dying wife with a reporter. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. That brings back some memories of the 2004 presidential election. I still remember that, actually. I remember being the only kid in my elementary school class that supported John Kerry over Bush. The teacher like asked us, like, raise your hand if you support, you know, George Bush, and everyone raised their hand, and I was the only motherfucker in the entire class that raised my hand for John Kerry, who in retrospect I wouldn't even vote for now. Fuck that guy. Terrible candidate. Represents the worst of the Democratic Party for sure. But at the time I was the only fucking holdout, guys, at least in my Kansas elementary school classroom.
Yeah, Walnut Grove was a bastion for fucking conservative politics. If I ever had one as an elementary school student, unfortunately, I too was one of those students that would have been a firm hand in the air. I remember our arguments about McCain and fucking Obama just a few years later at that very elementary school. Yeah, now in hindsight, we would have both been rocking those Nader Raider fucking outfits. Fucking, but anyway.
Oh yeah, if anyone's not aware, Zach and I used to argue about politics all the time going back to our elementary school years. Our political conversations are not a new aspect of our friendship. It's basically defined our friendships our entire life. So definitely pretty funny.
New Vanguard drinking game. Every time Gavin says 100% take a shot. I like how we were both on that as soon as it fucking came up in the chat. Try not to die of alcohol poisoning. Fun fact, the worst drinking game I ever fucking participated in my life was the Fight Club drinking game. I was like 18 years old and my friends and I, we got like a big ass fucking handle of Captain Morgan, and every time any of the things on the list happened, we took a shot of Captain, and I just threw up in my shower all over myself for like 4 hours afterwards.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that shit, bro. That's funny as fuck. That is funny. Throwing up in the bathtub. Yeah.
All over myself with the shower running. It was fucking
Oh God. But yeah, I guess we can get into the titular topic for today, talking a little bit about this latest drama, which is consuming left Twitter. Of course, it involves Jimmy Dore and his fuck up, I'll just say, on his stream from a couple days ago, where a paragraph from an article was edited in a way that changed the meaning slightly. The YouTuber Sean did a video about this where he basically broke down Jimmy Dore's vaccine rhetoric and kind of debunked some of it. So I'll play a few minutes of that just for some context if you guys aren't aware, because a lot of people have been talking about this video, sharing this video, responding to it, etc. Again, so this is kind of the context on which the story is built. Just want to play a few minutes so that you guys know what's going on here. But yeah, this is a clip from Sean's video addressing the situation, and we can talk about whether or not Jimmy deserves some of the fire he's getting, some of the criticism.
Wary of overloading its hospitals, so is planning to reintroduce lockdown measures as needed in order to control the number of cases. This all makes perfect sense. Very strict lockdown orders, then a high vaccination rate, then a lifting of those orders leading to increasing cases, with some orders reintroduced in order to avoid overwhelming healthcare capacity. This is
Also, thanks again for the super chat, Jimmy. Really appreciate that. Elon has major mommy issues. Check him out on SNL. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I don't know a ton about Elon Musk's family, but I do know his mom is like a fucking like fashion model or something, even though she's like 80 years old or whatever. Like she literally does like fashion shoots for like Prada and shit, even though she's like really, really old. So, I guess that's cool for her, but yeah, that might be very true.
Yeah, have you been on the internet? It seems like fucking everybody has mommy issues. It's fucking terrifying. Gavin and I were talking about that the other day. It's like really weird, but anyway.
It's not too hard to follow, you'd think.
But Singapore's growing caseload has raised alarms, nonetheless, because of the speed at which cases have climbed. Despite policies including stay-at-home orders, intensive testing and contact tracing, and a ban on foreign visitors. And 80% of them are vaccinated. They're having the biggest outbreak ever.
Now, sharp-eyed viewers will have noticed that what Dore just read out is not what the article says. And let's look at them side by side here. The article says, throughout July and August, cases in Singapore ticked up to over 100 per day after nearly a year of almost no infections due to the city's previous zero-tolerance policy. Emphasis on the word previous there. Then it goes on to say that policy included stay-at-home orders, intensive testing, and so on. Jimmy Dore's text says the speed at which cases have climbed despite policies including stay-at-home orders, intensive testing, and so on. He snips out the sentence, making it clear that these policies were the previous policies, the policies that were lifted, and he puts the word despite in there. Now, the word despite is not in this paragraph in the original article, and this makes it seem like these policies are current, ongoing policies. He's rewriting what the article says to make it say something different. Now, I'd like to pause here and ask a question to any fans of Jimmy Dore's content that might be watching this video. Now, I know that the response to me saying Jimmy Dore produces anti-vaccine content will be to say, no he doesn't. Dore doesn't directly tell anyone not to get the vaccine. He got the vaccine, and he says that you can get the vaccine if you like. He's not anti-vaccine, he's just asking questions. He's just got some concerns. He's just reporting the vaccine news. Now, my question is, if this was true, if Jimmy Dore really was just innocently asking questions and provoking debate, why does he need to lie? Why is he selectively quoting the article to avoid mentioning the positive effects of vaccination? Why is he editing the text of the article to make lockdown measures seem ineffective? If he was just reporting the news, he would just read out the article in full, right? If he's just asking questions, why not ask, why does Singapore have one of the lowest COVID death rates in the world? And the answer is because Jimmy Dore is trying to present a biased view of vaccines. He is producing content specifically to attempt to draw in an anti-vaccine audience. He's just doing it with plausible deniability because he doesn't want to be banned by YouTube.
So yeah, definitely an interesting breakdown from Sean, and I think he is, fair to make the points that he does here. I think that, Jimmy Dore definitely fucked up by airing this segment with a edited paragraph from an article. I think the author of that article has even come out and said, so here, throw this up on the screen real quick. I believe this is the author. Yeah, I wrote an article about Singapore's recent outbreak that was misquoted and rearranged in a vaccine skeptics video broadcast to hundreds of thousands of people on YouTube. The video's host, Jimmy Dore, says he didn't actually read the article before posting the video. So again, regardless of what you think of Jimmy Dore, I've agreed with Jimmy plenty of times. We were huge force the vote defenders here. I do think it just should be said that this is a F up. And luckily he has addressed it. We can play the video for you guys, which we can then talk about people's response to, because that opened up a whole nother can of worms. As you can see here, Ken Klippenstein of The Intercept tweeted this out. Jimmy Dore straight up fabricated a quote to advance his vaccine skeptic bullshit, and now he's throwing his producer under the bus. So before we comment on that, let's play that very video and see what Jimmy's justification was and who he said was actually responsible for this, so we can break it all down after that.
He originally reported this graphic here is incorrect. This graphic here was put together by my producer, and he joined together two sentences that didn't go together, and he added a word, despite. So if you're going to add a word, you have to put brackets around it so people know you've added a word and it wasn't in the source text. He didn't do that. And then he changed the tense of these two words to make it fit syntactically or grammatically with the rest of the sentence. Now, you could combine two sentences, but you have to put a ... and then so people know that you're jumping ahead. And so, but that didn't do that. Plus, that was supposed to be a period, and he put a comma. And then he put this, and it actually changed the meaning of this sentence. It didn't mean what. So, by the way, doesn't change. So I have to cover that, right? Because that was fucked up. And I didn't know about that. I had to trust my producer that we went over the story. He put it together. I had no idea he was going to take two sentences, jam them together, and add a word without putting it in a bracket. So I had no idea when I did this segment originally that had happened. That was done by my producer who put it together. I asked him why he did it, and he didn't really have a good excuse. He said, I was in a hurry, I got sloppy, and I'm stupid. Unfortunately, he can't be with us anymore because I can't have someone on like that who's sloppy, stupid, and does something like that. And so, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. So someone's paid a price for this. So, but Singapore's growing caseload has raised alarms nonetheless because of the speed at which cases have climbed. And there's a period. And he put a comma, and then he jumps down to here. The policy included, and then he then he said, despite policies including stay at home. That is not accurate. And then he didn't put the brackets, and then, so that was wrong. And that was effed up. And the reason why we're correcting that is because it was brought to my attention, and I figured out that actually happened, and I'm correcting it because we have integrity at the show. That's all we have is our word.
So yeah, that's the video. Did you have any initial comments, Zach? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I was going to, this is a complicated one, guys, because to me, if this is my show, not how I handle the situation at all, right? I think that if you're an employer, right, you have a certain amount of accountability that always needs to be claimed. I didn't hear a lot of leadership from Jimmy on that. I heard a lot of scapegoating on an unnamed producer that took the entire fall, and perhaps it was that guy's fault, but where was the workplace culture set up for the Jimmy Dore show, right? We're always talking about how workers should have rights, workers should have support, workers should have all of these things made available to them, and workers should not be the fucking fired scapegoat. 100%, this is your fault when you fucking up like this. Because to be fair, okay, maybe it was the producer that did this. That's, I take Jimmy at his word when he says that he fired the producer that fucking put these stories together. Fine. I think that the broader critique that I maintain, I have two. I don't think it's a good look to shear an article down, taking out any piece of fucking contrarian opinion that's put in there by the author to basically misrepresent that piece. I don't care if he did put the ellipses in there. I don't think that's the crux of a lot of people's beef right now. The fact of the matter is that there was a lot of dissenting information and nuance in that piece that was completely stripped of it. It was sheared to have a specific agenda that was not authentic to the article writer's intent, right? The journalist's intent. And I think that if we were looking at this situation and it was the exact same thing had happened on the Majority Report, where one of the Majority Report producers had taken two articles or one article and they'd cut out a bunch of stuff and they'd put it all together where it made Russiagate sound a lot more plausible than it was, right? Because let's not forget, right? While the Majority Report is out here dunking on the Jimmy Dore show all the time for this incident, right? They were happy to get behind Russiagate, just like Cenk Uygur, just like all of these other individuals. And in this time, had it been Jimmy looking at the Majority Report being like, oh, they're lying, they've done this together, I don't think he would come to the same it's no big deal, it was just a sloppy producer conclusion. I don't think that this consistent curation of a point like that is something that you can just once off blame as like, oh, this fucking stupid sloppy guy did this. I don't like anybody that's going to use that language about their employees, current or former. I don't think that shows good leadership as a boss. I really don't. Gavin and I don't want any employees here because we do this show 100% on our own. We find the stories, we read the stories, and we present the stories. And whenever anything goes wrong, it's 100% on us. We have nobody to blame but ourselves, and that's how it'll always be. I think it's fucked up to blame somebody when you, and especially somebody that's your employee. It's not called Nameless Producer Show. It's called the Jimmy Dore Show. You got to have some fucking integrity and some personal responsibility. And, that's not the same as scapegoating somebody on your show that you said you fired. So I don't think that's a great look for a guy that claims to be really pro worker, if I'm being honest. And that's the crux of my beef with it. I also would be pissed as hell if I was the journalist that had my work sheared down. And I think Jimmy Dore would be pissed as hell if he was the journalist that had his work sheared down to make a point that he wasn't trying to make. And I think anybody that says otherwise is full of shit. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's actually really fair, Zach. I totally agree with what you're saying. And ultimately, I guess my biggest issue with this is that even if you do take Jimmy at his word, which I do, I think he was probably telling the truth there about a producer fucking it up. Aaron Mate has echoed that and said, yes, someone actually lost their job over that. But my problem with it still is that, even if this was a producer's fault, does this mean that Jimmy Dore isn't reading or familiar with the substance of the articles, which is, reading out on his show to try to make his points for him? Because if the article said something else and that the point was different than what ultimately ended up on screen, and Jimmy just still read it out anyway, as if it was confirming his point already, then that kind of tells me that he's not actually reading these articles, and he's just trying to cherry pick information to, like I said, make his point for him, to confirm his bias. And that's not really what we should be striving to do as commentators in this space, or journalists, if he considers himself that. That's not the point of a journalist. And I don't think it's healthy to kind of create this echo chamber where we just ignore or edit out everything that contradicts with our worldview. That's just something that I feel personally opposed to, and that should be obvious. And I get it, mistakes happen. I'm not trying to make too big of a deal out of a mistake, but at the same time, I think it does call into question some of his reporting on this subject matter, because it now I'm thinking about all the other articles that he's read out to make his points, and I'm like, were you just cherry picking to try to find something that would confirm what you're already saying here, or are you actually looking at the totality of information and trying to come away from it with the best information to give your audience? And there are a lot of people that trust Jimmy Dore, so this is a serious responsibility he has. So it is what it is. And I think you also make a good point, Zach, that had this occurred on TYT or Majority Report, etc., that Jimmy Dore probably would have felt differently. He probably would have come after them pretty viciously, as he has many organizations like TYT or Democracy Now!, for example. Jimmy Dore is a ruthless critic of other lefty media when they fuck up. So again, not that, it is just a mistake, et cetera, but at the same time, we have to hold the same standards for everyone. We have to apply the same standards and not just selectively criticize people who we might disagree with, So yeah, do I agree with Jimmy Dore on a lot of stuff? Sure. Do I think it's also still important to call him out when he fucks up and, does journalistic malpractice? Yeah, I do. I think that's only fair. And if people don't want to hear that, I'm sorry. We're here to give honest opinions, not just defend people or lick their asses. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. But did want to address a few super chats, unless you had anything else to break in with real quick, Zach.
Oh yeah, really quickly, I'll just go ahead and say this. I think that we were just having this conversation the other day about how it's good to introduce heterodox viewpoints into your lifestyle and listen to people who have different perspectives. I think this might be a really important opportunity for people who are just instinctively interested in shutting out that criticism. People who are instinctively just no, this is not true. Like there's a lot to be skeptical about in that video, regardless of whether or not it was a producer's fault or not. And there's a lot to be skeptical about over the last couple of months. If I'm being honest, I don't know. I think it's a little bit revealing that the crux of Jimmy's value set is more about what's contrarian than what's authentic, and that's going to be a hot take from me, and I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Alan, for the super chat. And I do want to address everyone's comments here because this is a complex situation for sure. Alan says Jimmy Dore has been specifically targeting anti-vaxxers. His whole theory now is we're going to get it anyway. However, Sam Seder and that crowd has bad faith Jimmy for the last 2 years. So their criticism means nothing. Well, thank you for the super chat, and I appreciate your comment. I agree that a lot of the attacks on Jimmy Dore coming from Sam Seder and his ilk have been in bad faith, but that doesn't mean that this specific criticism is invalid too. Everything has to be assessed on a case by case basis, and regardless of who the messenger is, I think the substance is still accurate. Jimmy Dore does deserve to be criticized for this mess up, just like any commentator in media deserves to be criticized when they mess up. Again, that's basically the whole point of Jimmy Dore's show, is to criticize other people. So I think he can take what he dishes out. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I appreciate the comment, Alan. Really do. We have a few more down here. Let me get to these super chats.
And it's not as if we haven't agreed with Jimmy Dore countless times in the past. We're not, we'll agree or disagree with whoever the fuck we feel like it. That's our entire show. This is another example of us deciding to disagree with somebody that we fucking oftentimes do agree with. And that, challenges people often.
Yeah. John asked, do you think that producer shouldn't have been fired? If that was my producer that made that mistake, then I don't know what I can say I would do in that situation. Like Zach said, we don't have any employees for this very reason. We want to be 100% responsible for what we're putting out. So it's definitely a tricky situation. I guess what I think Zach was taking more issue with, and what I take issue with as well, is the way he was, discussing the producer and trying to avoid taking any responsibility himself, just offloading it all onto some nameless producer who he called sloppy and stupid. So yeah, maybe he could have adjusted the way he was talking about one of his workers a little bit. But yeah, I can definitely sympathize with the decision to fire him as well.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to the fact that, there was no accountability taken. Is this the first time this person's messed up? What is the protocol for somebody, fact checking the work before it goes out for the Jimmy Dore show? If he is, rearranging the article, does he have somebody that overlooks and he submits it to that, does it, or is it just live to the air? Is that agreed upon? These are all kinds of questions that you have to take into consideration if you're a business owner, and it's your responsibility as a business owner to have these structures ironed out so an employee knows what the consequences for this kinds of malpractice are. You know what I'm saying? And of course, like, yes, there are big mistakes that just result in termination and all kinds of across the board situations, but and as Gavin mentioned, we weren't there. We don't know the history of this employee. We don't know all of that kind of stuff. The one thing that I can say I do know is that it felt like that guy was getting it all fucking blamed on him when it was just patently not entirely his fault, right? If somebody goes out there and fucking goes on TYT and spews a bunch of shit, right? Like, we all kind of hold Jank responsible because he owns TYT, right? Even when Anna Kasparian has all of this shit, she is, an employee of TYT, right? We kind of hold those people accountable in a collective, especially Cenk Uygur, because he is the, owner operator of TYT. Same with Sam Seder, right? So for the majority report respectively. So I just think you have to have a high standard for everyone. And if you're going to be as relentlessly critical as we are of everybody, then we're going to be critical across the board, and we're going to apply that whenever we see fit. And, that is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. That's the point of our show, is to give you guys our honest opinion on stuff. And if we were just trying to say what we knew would appease the, faction of our audience or whatever, then that wouldn't be legitimate. That wouldn't even be worth watching. That would be bullshit. So yeah, of course we're going to give our honest opinion. That goes without saying. That's the point of our show. Thank you so much, Patrick, for the $49.99. Really genuinely appreciate that generous donation, sir. He says, old trucker here. Great take, both of you, on the Jimmy Dore story. And Zach, bread guy, accountability from Jimmy Dore is a must. So yeah, thank you so much for the comment and the donation, Patrick. Like I said, it's really generous, and glad that you think it was a good take. We're just being honest, trying to give our most authentic opinions and analysis, but really appreciate you saying that, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, hugely grateful for that contribution, and we try and just talk shit here and say what we think. So we really appreciate that you've been enjoying it, and shout out to all of our trucker listeners. We really value you guys.
100%. And thank you, Adam, for the $5. Please do not be a blind follower of Jimmy Dore. Go to his videos. His only audience is right-wingers and anti-vaxxers. Cheers from Iowa guys. High five. Yeah, thank you, Adam, for the $5. And I think it's a little bit unfair to reduce his entire audience down to right-wingers and anti-vaxxers. But like you said, Zach, some of his content over the last couple of months has become increasingly questionable in both of our opinions. And yeah, that's going to attract a certain kind of audience. So that is what it is. And thank you for the $5. Adam, I certainly agree. There are a lot of blind followers out there. That's definitely something we've encountered quite a bit. People that refuse to, look at a nuance in a situation and come to terms with the reality that everyone fucks up and everyone deserves to be, criticized when they do fuck up. No one's above criticism, right?
100%. I think that's about our hour, though. Oh wow, we got another super chat. Shout out to Joseph McDermott. Some of Sean's video was valid. Science stories need rigor. However, many valid criticisms of Fauci by Dore and Blumenthal were twisted by Sean. Thank you for the super chat. If you go ahead and send us any of those specifics by email, we'd be happy to go ahead and take a look at that and report on it. So thank you for that super chat, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph, for the $5 in the comments. Yeah, I didn't watch all of Sean's videos, so I can't speak to every criticism of it, but I appreciate your reasonable, nuanced take here that, yeah, a lot of his video was valid, but maybe some of it wasn't. Like I said, we need to see more nuance in the space in general, and people need to be less tribal, in my opinion, when it comes to some of these issues. But yeah, thank you so much for the super chat. We did get a few more as well. Thank you, Daniel. I watch you guys because of Jimmy. Maybe don't throw low-key, or maybe don't low-key throw him under the bus. Well, sorry, Daniel, if you felt that way, but like I said, we're just here to give our honest commentary on any commentator, regardless of who they are. We're not here to, run cover for anyone or run defense for a certain commentator. When we feel they fucked up, we feel they fucked up, and we're going to talk about it just like we talk about any other commentator when they fuck up. That's how it is. And I think it would frankly be unfair and lying by omission to only cover, Cenk Uygur and Sam Seder when they mess up and never cover, Jimmy when he does. That's only being fair and even-handed, and that's what we're trying to do here. So, I appreciate the sentiment of your comment, and I really appreciate the super chat, but that's just not what we're here to do, to run defense for someone.
My favorite videos of Jimmy Dore are when he gives all of his thoughtful, nuanced opinions of people that he disagrees with, and he sits down quietly and explains why he doesn't see eye to eye with them. So yeah, I think he's got thick skin. I think he can take care of himself, but thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Again, I can't wait till Sam Seder applies the same level of scrutiny to MSNBC as he does to Jimmy Dore. Same goes for Intercept, Step, and the Intercept. And yeah, that's a valid point. Jimmy Dore certainly, not the only person to have fucked up. And to his credit, at least he did run a retraction. Sometimes you don't see a retraction from bigger, more professional news companies like MSNBC when they fuck up, like Russiagate. So, that's undeniable. That's 100% undeniable. And thank you for the super chat again.
Yeah, the difference is that we don't hold Jimmy Dore to the standard that we hold MSNBC to, guys. Like, of course, MSNBC is a liar. Of course, all these, but we've gone out and defended Jimmy Dore. We've talked about why independent media has value. And the whole reason that Jimmy Dore is out criticizing these other major media platforms is because they need to be held accountable. The same reason that we're out here doing our show about New Left Media is because New Left Media needs to be held accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable. The Vanguard needs to be held accountable. If you think our takes are trash, make a fucking video about it and spread it far and wide.
Yeah, 100%. We have no problem with people criticizing us, and we listen to a lot of those criticisms too. We try to, hear out people and grow according to where we've fucked up in the past as well. So of course that applies to everyone. And thank you for the $2. The only way forward is to speak your mind with integrity. It's what we're trying to do. So thank you for that, and thank you, Jimmy Good, as well, for the $4.49. Good on you guys for having the balls to call out anyone when they are wrong. No one is infallible. Thank you for the credit, Jimmy. Like I said, we try to do that, regardless of how popular it may be with our audience, we're just trying to give our honest takes here. But yeah, really appreciate the comment, Jimmy. Got a few more. Joseph says, I still love Jimmy Dore, but your criticism is fair. And Joseph, I totally relate to that. I love a lot of Jimmy Dore's content as well. Like if you guys remember back when this channel started out, a lot of our original comment was, pro force the vote, trying to rally the troops behind the force the vote movement and just talking about what a good idea it was and how many unfair attacks Jimmy Dore was coming under from folks like Sam Seder when he was just proposing a very good, sensible idea that wasn't being received that way. So, yeah, I totally agree with that, and I appreciate your nuance.
Yeah, look, we will agree with Jimmy Dore again on many, many issues, and you'll see it, and you'll, there will be a certain percentage of people in the comment section that'll be like, "Why are you flip flopping on Jimmy Dore?" We don't flip flop on anybody because what we actually use is all these people are just foils for like, let's talk about the situation, let's talk about these ideas, right? Like this is nothing personal when we critique anybody, though many people disagree, and that's fine. And like I said, I've laughed hysterically at a lot of Jimmy Dore's content. I think a lot of it's really funny. We've massively diverged on it when it comes to some issues, but we've also been like the lone people on the far side of the fringe internet left battling it out on issues that we agree, and that's how we'll continue to do this fucking show. But yeah, appreciate the super chat, Joseph.
100%. Thank you for the $9.99 deculturation. Seder is the liberal fox Malcolm X warned about, and Dore will do the Tulsi twist soon. Neither is leftist, just profiting off of infotainment with different grift angles. Well, that's certainly a hot take, deculturation. And yeah, maybe you're onto something there. I'm not sure. I don't know if, I don't think that Dore has even come close to being as cringy as Tulsi Gabbard has recently. So I don't want to go that far. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting take.
Yeah, appreciate that take. And honestly, I don't think that Dore will do the Tulsi twist anytime soon. We disagree about this. We're not trying to just slander the man. Okay. Like, yeah, this was a bad decision, a cringy take. I think the show should reevaluate how they do their stories. That was why we made this piece of content. It wasn't to be like Jimmy Dore should never fucking show his face in public again. And Sam Seder, yeah, I have a lot of I don't have a ton of good agreements with Sam Seder. I don't know if necessarily he's looking to sell out the black population as is inferred by Malcolm X about the liberal fox, but perhaps I definitely don't take his commentary very seriously, and it's 100% correct to say that he hasn't put an ounce of the scrutiny towards Russiagate or any of the other fucking issues that we've disagreed with him on as far as he does with Jimmy Dore. And that was what I was trying to lay out in the beginning of my analysis when I said it's not that the fucking Sam Seder, left wing or whatever you want to call them, it deserves a victory lap right here, right? And just because we put up Ken Cliftonstein's tweet doesn't mean we've never disagreed with Ken Cliftonstein before, right? It's just like this, we're trying to just wade through the media scene all across the board here at the Vanguard, and we're trying to do it fair and we're trying to do it even-handedly. So that is what it is.
Yeah, and we're also just trying to get to the bottom of the truth here and not create an echo chamber, which so many people seem to want to reside in, despite their rhetoric saying otherwise. But yeah, appreciate that. And also thank you again for the $49.99, Patrick. Really, really appreciate that generosity today. You have no idea how much it means. But Patrick says, Gavin, love your calm spirit. Zach, I meant the beard guy. That makes sense now, not the bread guy. Because I wasn't sure I knew your name. Love the guy. Love you guys, even when I don't agree. Amazing passion. Well, thank you so much, Patrick. Really, really genuinely appreciate the comment and the donation. And we're so happy to hear that you're enjoying the show, even if you don't agree with us. That's one of the things that I really personally pride myself on as a commentator, is that we have amassed an audience of people that don't just agree with us 100% of the time. We have a wide range of people across the political spectrum that listen to our show because they enjoy our commentary. Again, not because we're here to confirm their biases or, just to force feed them or spoon feed them what they already think. No, we're here to actually give our opinions in an honest way. And we really, really genuinely appreciate you, noticing that and appreciating it in turn, Patrick. So thank you so much.
Yeah, just echoing what Gavin said, we obviously the incredibly gracious thank you for the donation. That was incredible. And yeah, we really hope that you keep coming back even when you don't agree with us. And we read the comments, like sometimes I get pissed off and say I don't. I will hear your feedback. So you know what I mean?
100%. Thank you, John. Gavin, if you want to say that you got the scar on your cheek fighting for the revolution, I'll back you up, brother. Well, I did. I don't know what else I would have gotten that from, but absolutely 100% I was fighting for the revolution, guys.
John and I saw it with our own 4 eyes.
Yeah, of course John is referring to the cat scratch that happened live on air the other day. You guys never know what's going to happen when you're watching the Vanguard. You might see me getting mauled by my own cat. That's always a possibility, as it did happen the other day. So yeah, I really appreciate the super chat though, John. And I believe that's it as far. Oh, nope, not quite. Thank you for the $5, the Blue Noble. It is important to not be lost in the personality of it all for leftists. Only through labor will you approach the origin. And that is very, very true. And obviously we center our show around personalities, especially drama involving different personalities in the leftist commentary space. But yeah, it's 100% important not to be lost in the personalities and really keep your eye on the ball, focus on what our real goals should be as a movement. So yeah, it's definitely fun to talk about this stuff through the lens of various personalities and drama and all that stuff. But it's important to not let yourself just start blindly following someone for demagogic reasons and defending them every single time, even when they do undeniably fuck up. It's important to stay even-handed and clear-minded about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really appreciate your comment, man.
Yeah, we stay on our Mary Poppins shit. It's just a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. It's all about getting down to the bottom of it. So yeah, anyway, I think that's the end of the show for the day. Everybody, if you're still itching for more content, make sure you hit that General Strike Summit that is currently happening on the Fred Hampton Leftist podcast. I'm sure there's a bunch of prior content there for you to consume over the course of the next couple of days, because they've had so many amazing speakers lined up. Gavin and I are having the good opportunity to go kick it with our good friend of the show, one of the most original OG friends of the show, Kamali Rose, later. So be sure to catch us over there doing that. We're going to be doing a lot of strike updates, a lot of talking about that, catching up with an old friend, that sort of shit. So if you're interested, follow us over there.
Yeah, 100%. We're going to be on the General Strike Summit over at Fred Hampton Left here in an hour or so with friend of the show, Kamali Rose, Radical Democracy, who's now part of FHL himself. So super, super excited about that. And just a huge shout out to the comrades over at FHL for putting on such an impressive event with so many great speakers, activists, commentators, etc. It's been awesome to watch and super honored to participate in it ourselves later today. So with that being said, that's the end of our show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys received our opinions with nuance, even if you disagreed with us. As always, we're just doing our best here to be honest and get to the bottom of the truth here. And we appreciate those of you who appreciate that aspect of our show. But I did want to shout out the patrons real quick before we sign off. A huge shout out to those of you guys supporting us on patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. If you guys want to help the show, support us, and join our patron community, that link is in the description. We do start and end all of our live streams with a huge shout out to the patrons for making what we do possible. So yeah, hit up that link in the description if you want to join our patron community, and just a huge sincere shout out to everyone supporting the show financially for what you do. It really truly makes us our work possible and keeps us going. So a huge shout out. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate that. And a huge shout out to everyone that contributed today via super chat as well. That really helps the show too. And we love interacting with our audience and hearing your guys' opinions. Again, whether or not we agree with you guys, always love to hear out other perspectives. So really appreciate that. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend. Anything else you had to say, Zach?
No, I think I'm good, man. Just catch Fred Hampton Leftist General Strike Summit. Peace out, guys.